Hi, I'm Paul Camillos. Join me and my co-host Jacinta Gavin for Series 4 of Shooting the Breeze. We cover women's hoops and women in hoops. We talk to inspiring players, amazing coaches, and the legends behind the scenes and at the grassroots of the game. During this series, we'll be covering the FIBA Women's World Cup, where the 12 best teams on the planet are coming to Sydney. And of course, we'll be covering Australia's longest-running women's professional sporting league, the WNBL, in its 43rd season. Hit that subscribe button, like and review so we can get more hoops content to you.
"10 years in Africa," you realize that the world wants to promote differences. And really, at the heart of it, especially when it comes to female coaches, we're all facing the same challenges, the same barriers. A coach in Zambia is facing the same challenge that someone in Melbourne, Australia is facing. There's no different. And so I really want the network to be that coach to the power of the network.
In an Australian podcast first, Shooting the Breeze regular coach Liz Mills joins us with her twin sister Vik as they launch their Global Women in Basketball coaching network. Liz is renowned for making hoops history as the first woman to head coach a men's national team at an African Continental Championship, and co-founder Vik is an accomplished leader in the global consulting services industry. We explore the universal challenges for women in basketball coaching and from different walks of life, and get a glimpse into the remarkable female coaches that form the leadership group, including previous pod guest, Sydney Kings assistant coach Fleur McIntyre. It's a remarkable close-up view of two trailblazers with a shared history of coaching basketball in their youth, on their vision for positive change and a lasting legacy. In Liz's own words, "It's our role to change that narrative. We rise by lifting others, and that's what we should be doing with this network." Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Joining me, as always, my co-host Jacinta Gavin, and today we are joined by Coach Liz Mills and her sister Vik on a special day because you guys have launched your Global Women in Basketball coaching group. And you only did that like 4 hours ago, which is great.
Yes, it's a big day for both of us. We've been working on this program or project, I'd say, probably since Afrobasket last year. It was something that Vik and I had discussed. And, then I ended up going to Morocco, and that kind of put this project on hold until that season was over. And since coming back in June, July, we've been working together in getting the page on Facebook ready to be launched today. Yeah, no, it's been a big project in terms of all the preparation that's gone into it. Liz has obviously dedicated a lot of her time to making sure it was a successful launch. As you said, Paul, we launched only a couple of hours ago, and I think we're already up to 100 people knocking on the Facebook door. I think Liz didn't maybe mention this really, but for her, a big part of the inspiration behind doing this project was, okay, yes, she's been able to achieve quite a number of records in the last year, 18 months. And it was like, what is going to be her lasting legacy? What will she be remembered for? So I think, the fact that Liz was willing to see beyond potentially that short-term goal, and yet she's been working out in Africa for over 10 years, but it was, what can I leave behind? What's that vision?
It's a really important thing because I see a lot of, and I'm sure you do too, Jacinta, there's a lot of opportunities and they never get capitalised on for female coaches.
Yeah.
And I also find that there's no nice way to put this, but they're not, in a lot of cases, they're not seen as equal to male coaches.
100%. A lot of the time, and Jacinta, you could probably speak to this as well, we spend so much time trying to be part of the boys' club. And I sat back and said, well, there are enough of us to create a women's club or a girls' club. We operate in silos, or, there might not be enough of us at a single club, but how many female coaches are there globally? There's got to be thousands, right? And so if we could find a way to connect, then we start to build each other up and we start to promote each other. And imagine if within this network, one of the end goals would be, hey, we have a position at this club available, and within our network, we can find coaches. And so that's how we can start holding each other accountable, raising each other up, which is basically the network's tagline is engage, empower, and elevate. And so that would be a perfect scenario, down the line once we've built this network into something that could be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely the strength in numbers thing rings true. I think especially our generation, we're still on that cusp of growing up, like you said, in silos and not with the idea of having strength in numbers, supporting other women, promoting other women, and always that underlying idea of having to compete with other women for everything. Mm-hmm. And so things like this is great because it bridges a big gap of having an international female coaches network. But at the same time, I'm like, why hasn't this happened before? It's just like a no-brainer. But I suppose it takes two very, very intelligent brains to get together and say, okay, let's do it. But yeah, it's a no-brainer, bridging a big gap, like I said. But I think it does kind of also reflect that we are generally working as individuals instead of collectives, because that's just how we've weirdly kind of grown up. So now it's time to smash another ceiling in that sense.
Well, exactly. And I think what, and Vik can speak to this as well, is 10 years in Africa, you realize that the world wants to promote differences. And really at the heart of it, especially when it comes to female coaches, we're all facing the same challenges, the same barriers. A coach in Zambia is facing the same challenge that someone in Melbourne, Australia is facing. There's no different. And so I really want the network to be that coach to the power of the network. That's the analyst in me, though. But, I think we want to promote an environment, a group where nothing is off limits. And how often women feel like they can't ask a question in a group because they might look dumb, or they don't want to look like they don't know as much as the male coaches do in the room, when really there's probably 99% of the other male coaches are thinking exactly the same thing. And so this is really a network that is exclusively for women, so that we can ask any question we want, and we've got a collective group of coaches. And it doesn't matter if you're part of the leadership, you're a co-founder, you're able to help someone regardless of whether you've coached for 1 year or 50.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about it, is that it's going to create an environment where people can speak up without having the fear of judgment. I think that's a big barrier to females in any sport, in any rank, whether they're an athlete or an aspiring coach or a referee. It's always that fear of judgment for trying something new or stepping out of the box or advocating for yourself. So, and the other part of that I'm thinking for this network is that aspiring coaches of any age and of any level of experience will get to work in parallel with people as experienced as yourself and of the mentors that we'll get into a bit later. And I think sometimes when you're working side by side, it really builds up the confidence and the kind of like the self-advocacy, I guess, of those newcomers, rather than having that power imbalance. Yeah, working side by side as mentors or like people on the same playing field, it's going to be, really, really fruitful, I think.
Exactly.
So before we go on to a couple of things, one of the things I want to ask about is Morocco, and AS Saleh. How did that go? I mean, you're laughing.
Oh, I feel sorry for Vik. She could probably tell you all about it. Look, coaching in Morocco was by far the most challenging coaching experience of my career.
Okay.
Not every job you do, be it corporate or coaching, you're going to love. Because it was so challenging, I really learnt a lot. And I loved Morocco as a country. Rabat as a city was amazing. The Moroccan people were great, super friendly. I know, Paul, you had a great time when you were there. But in terms of the team structure and the management, I've learned some valuable lessons in what I will accept and what I won't moving forward. But I think I learned a lot about ego management and emotional intelligence. It was very different from coaching sub-Saharan teams. You know, I had players cry every week, and that's something I've never experienced as a coach. And so understanding that Moroccans or maybe North Africans are a lot more emotional, passionate, and because I'm not like that, maybe it's an Australian thing as well, and learning to find a middle ground and work through those kind of emotions was very challenging. And I think I developed my EQ a lot while coaching there. And but I also had some really great players, our player Harona, who was MVP in Morocco and our best player in the BAL. Getting the opportunity to work with such a professional player like that is always a great opportunity. And they had some great young players and some vet players that I learned a lot from as well. And so all in all, challenging but rewarding in the sense that moving forward, I know exactly what, I will accept from my next team. And it's actually really helped me with negotiating with clubs moving into BAL qualifiers, because I'm like, these are things I will no longer accept, and these are things that must be done as I move forward.
I was going to ask about the cultural differences between the two groups that you've coached.
Yeah.
You've obviously, you notice that there's a difference. How did you find managing the differences in the personalities, the cultural personalities, once you realized what you had to deal with?
It changed my approach in how I would normally with, like, say, sub-Saharan Africans, I could be like, here's the video, here are the advanced analytics, and, fact, let's fix these things. And with a Moroccan, it would be like, so what do you think about our defensive rating and how you impact that? So it's more of a gentle, soft approach, or I would probably end up with tears. So I really had to learn empathy, because it's just something I haven't seen in a lot of males. So it's quite, oh, okay. And learning to be a little more gentle when, early on when I was coaching men, I thought I had to be a hard ass and be like, look at this, and how do you call this basketball, what you're doing, And so actually it's a nicer approach, because sometimes I walk away being like, oh man, I'm such a bad person with how I dealt with that. But players are different. Like, Jacinta can speak to this as well. Like, feedback is different for everybody. And whether, you're Moroccan or you're Kenyan, I think it comes down to that individual preference.
Okay. I'm going to change tack a little bit before we get back to the initiative. And we need to introduce Vik to our audience, because we've heard about you and on your journeys through Africa with Liz. I didn't realise that you're working at Deloitte in financial services consulting.
Yes.
To most people, they'd be looking at this going, oh, top 4-tier consulting company, financial services consulting, and then they're going to go, massive disconnect, African basketball.
So what brings it all together? Yeah, so look, I've had a really interesting journey over the last couple of years. When I finished coaching and playing back in, I think, 2011? 2011, yeah. It was kind of a decision where I had finished my master's degree in international relations, and I had wanted to, instead of reading about policies and development, and Africa was always my passion, I thought, okay, I'm going to go out there and see what's happening on the ground. And luckily enough, we were able to connect with a number of NGOs, and I worked for several during 2 or 3 years that I was based in Southern Africa. And I was lucky too, because a lot of them still tied into sport. So, we worked at the Olympic Youth Development Center in Zambia, for example, and I supported the center director there. And basketball was still a part of my life. Liz was coaching out there. That's her first coaching gig was in Zambia. And when I came back to Australia, I just sort of landed in a small, accounting firm. And from there, I've sort of bounced into bigger roles in actuarial consulting and then into Deloitte, which is the biggest professional service body in the world. So in saying that, finance is sort of like basketball, very male dominated, but I've also had some great female leaders and bosses. So I've had some amazing mentors, male and female, but I've always believed that you can have great opportunities when you're not even really searching for them. I've been really lucky with where I've landed in a chief of staff role. It's been very challenging at times, but I've also got to have the experience of working throughout Asia now. So I've learned about different cultures, different concepts and ways that people work. And I also get to work across the global team of Deloitte through Europe and the US. So I've had that career development in a different space, but I always try and bring the way that I come to the table as a team player through what I've learned through basketball. Teamwork, leadership, adversity, getting everyone across the line, recognizing what value everyone brings to the table are things that I still implement in my day-to-day role as well.
Okay.
Yep. That's all the stuff I like to say to kids of like, the basketball is just the vehicle for all of these life skills.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I definitely resonated with that because I still use the same things you mentioned in my day-to-day 9 to 5 as well, which isn't basketball related at all.
Oh, yeah.
But you've both had like lots of international experience in different types of work settings and contexts, but, polar opposite ends. So to speak. But where does it kind of cross over, or what are some of the things that you've each learnt in your respective areas that you've then, kind of swapped? So something, Vik, that you've learnt from Liz's experience that you've adopted and vice versa.
Great question.
Yeah.
I can go first because Vik is modest. She didn't just land this chief of staff role at Deloitte. She's probably one of the youngest chief of staffs for Deloitte, and it was her first time as a chief of staff. And so, seeing her pick up a role that she's never done before in a high-flying corporate environment, which is fast-paced, a lot of pressure, makes me, I learned that, being driven, being focused, trusting yourself, backing yourself, no matter what the situation is critical. And she showed that when she moved across to Deloitte last year. So that's something I learned from Vik. For Liz, I think the lowest points I've seen Liz have been around what she would classify as failures. But to me, the fact that she's been able to bounce back has been truly inspiring and is still continuously motivated to keep chasing her goals. So I think she's spoken to you guys about, that 2017 championship, trying to qualify for AfroBasket with Zambia. And, she'll tell you straight out, it took her a couple of months to bounce back. And it was really about searching deeply inside and going, okay, do I still want this? Do I still, have that love and passion and desire to chase that goal? Is it worth the sacrifice? Because there's a difference between a man sacrificing for that spot or a female. Because essentially, Liz is not getting paid a lot. And sometimes in the early days was never getting paid. So was she willing to sacrifice what she needed to chase her dream? So I think, that case in Zambia and also what happened in Morocco was tough. But she's come home and the assessment has become shorter, as she begins to learn what her lessons from those events. But it takes a big person to not just look at yourself in the mirror to see superficially what, oh yeah, I'm going to change this, this and this, but to dig deep and really understand what part did I play in that? What can I change? What can I own up to? And what am I going to demand of myself to get better next time? So I think from her lessons, we pick up from each other, but we're also each other's greatest supporters. So, we like to encourage each other. And we also know a lot of our own flaws. You got to recognize your own flaws, appreciate them too, but also go, okay, how am I going to get better in that area? Hey, I know Liz is really good in this department. Let me see how she approaches that. But, we live together as well. So, we can get on each other's.
We can bounce off each other very well.
I feel like I'm definitely not doing that.
It sounds like you kind of complement each other.
Occasionally.
Lots of ways.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Look, more diplomatic
can I tell you? She's acting like she, basketball's like way behind her. At AfroBasket, while she's not sitting on the bench, but as soon as I halftime, she's walking right next to me, giving me some helpful hints. There's lots of great post-game analysis. And if you ever have to sit next to her in the stands, bring some headphones because it gets rather loud and rude very quickly.
I have strong feelings towards referees, especially in Africa. It's a next level. So I have to be really careful who sits next to me. If I do end up with the VIP, like the presidents and stuff like that, it is incredibly difficult because I have to constantly be like, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
But Vik actually got me, what was it? Was it rejected from a game?
Oh, I did, yeah.
No, she got me suspended.
Yeah,
she got me suspended. Yeah.
I came all the way off the stands onto the floor and had a little bit of a domestic with the referee. But that was a long time ago. It was a long time
They
ago.
thought it was me, so I got suspended. That was fun. So now I have to put her she has to dress very differently to me.
See, this is where it's really good with, as twins, because you could kind of, wasn't me. It was her.
Exactly. Do you know what was actually really funny was when we were at Afro, when people would come by, they'd be like, oh, can I have a photo? Can I have a photo? And I was like, I'm not Liz. I'm not Liz. And they'd be like, that's okay. I'm like, oh,
because they'll just say it was me, so it's fine.
but it was pretty fun. There was a lot of love, I think, for Liz at Afro. And I think in Morocco, I don't think you highlighted that, Liz, was the fact that there were a lot of young women and girls that came to the games to see Liz. I think, was it a mum with her kids came and spoke to
her? That was in BAL in Senegal. But even in Morocco, we would be at away games and the away fans were more excited to see me than AS Sally, who are the biggest team in Morocco. And look, I had a lot of love from girls and women there, and I made sure I went to watch some of the, youth girls teams play and ran a practice session with them as well, and which was a lot more than I have done previously because I just haven't had the time, and because of COVID, we were kept in bubbles. So, but like we've spoken about previously, it's the value of having a very visible role model. And, I think that's also one of the reasons why with the leadership group for the Global Women in Basketball Coaching Network, I was like, some of these women might not be household names, but they should be. They're trailblazers in their own right. And if we can create, sure, there's great women out there like Becky Hammond and Adisha Curry, and who's coaching with Portland Trailblazers. These women are amazing, but it's also what do we have in our FIBA network that people can relate to? So, yeah.
So let's talk about the initiative, because there's so much to unpack here. I mean, we got a pretty good idea of what your vision is for this. I want to understand how you're looking at you're engaging with your target audience, your plans, and how do people get involved? Because I think it's a great initiative. I think it's a spectacular initiative. I think it's way past its due date. So for anybody who's listening to the podcast, how do they get involved? What sort of people do you want to have involved, and what's your plans so that they can get on board with it?
Okay, well, basically, at the end of the day, it's all about women connecting with women. But in saying that, we've got a great group of 7 other elite female coaches who work with men, women, and juniors. And we're, as a leadership group,
each month, one of the leadership coaches will launch a topic that we will be discussing for that month. And so, for example, in September, I'm going to kick this off and I will be talking about planning and evaluation will be our subject, because a lot of teams are in preseason. And so that instigates that topic for the month. But at no time do we say, you can't ask a random question. It can be offense, it could be defense, it could be a challenge you're facing. The group is open. And so what we're also hoping is, topic every month, but we're also going to interview every 3 months one of the leadership coaches. And we're going to open up the forum. So it's kind of like a Q&A. There's no limit. You can ask whatever you want, but it's also a way of introducing and highlighting our leadership coaches who come from across the world. And in that way, we're not only building up our leadership coaches, we are also making them available so that they can answer any questions, because not every coach is going to relate to me. My coaching journey is quite unique. And so there might be a leadership coach that someone else might relate to. For example, we've got Fleur McIntyre, who's representing Australia, assistant coach with the Sydney Kings. So she might be more relatable to our Australian-based coaches. And so I think, to answer your question, Paul, it is very much a learning process for Vik and I. We're often bouncing off ideas. I mean, Vik loves polls and throwing questions out to our community. And I think that's probably what we're really it's going to be trial and error, to be honest. In that first couple of months, we might end up, saying to the group, hey, what are some of the topics you want to discuss right now? Because what I might think is relevant is not relevant for 90% of the people. So we might have to rejiggle our schedule, change some topics. We want to be adaptable and be able to pivot, to be able to answer the most relevant and pressing issues that our coach, because that's the fundamental problem. I've been in a couple of coaching groups now. I won't name one specifically. And I love it when they're run by men who tell us what we need to know without actually asking our opinion. That's a personal favorite of mine. And so Vik could talk about that as well when it comes to corporate. But yeah.
I think, and also, Paul, just to answer your other question, the page is at the moment only on Facebook. It is restricted just to women. Again, this is phase one. So, we might obviously move it out to a wider audience later, but ultimately we're starting on Facebook, and then it might move into other platforms as we go.
Okay. And what level of experience or age or anything in what part of a female coach's journey do you recommend they be at to join the group? Or even if maybe they're just a 17-year-old rep kid that does coaching on the side, are they someone suitable to join the group too?
For us, we decided we wanted to actually cast a really wide net. We want to have coaches who are, 17-year-olds. And Vik and I started coaching when we were 16 for basketball. And so we want to have that beginner coach, and we want the advanced coach as well. Because as much as you think an advanced coach can't learn from a beginner coach, you'd be surprised. Because how they might see something, you might be a little bit old school and be like, it's a different perspective. What we're going to make sure of, though, is, say, for example, our topics, which is planning and evaluating in September. I will put on that this is mainly for beginner and intermediate coaches. Then Brittni is going to be doing one on scouting, which is for elite coaches. So we're going to try and balance out the subjects and the level of each topic as the months go on. Obviously, we're not always going to be able to cater for everyone, because if you try and cater for everybody, you lose everyone. And so we're hoping that, if you're a beginner coach, you're going to obviously observe and learn a lot. It's probably the intermediate coaches who are the ones who are kind of deciding, do I want to do this professionally? Do I want to work with seniors? Do I want to work with national teams, juniors, etc.? That's probably the sweet point. And then the elite coaches, we're really looking for them to impart their words of wisdom and give back. That's what really the network is about them, and being able to mentor the coaches below them.
Because that has like even more opportunity just in that sense of beginner coaches having access to intermediate or expert coaches in a way where, like you said, a beginner coach could bring something to their attention. But for those intermediate and elite coaches, if they're able to, teach someone and kind of explain something properly to a beginner coach, it's going to cement it in their own mind as well. What's that saying? How, like, if you're able to teach it, it shows that you really, really know what you're talking about. So even we do so many things in day-to-day life and 9-to-5s and coaching that we just do automatically now because, it's just become ingrained in our system, so to speak. But when we're able to pass it on to someone else, it just cements it and reminds us and keeps us accountable as well as kind of like mentors.
True. I read something recently where they said you can be a coach of 50 years but only have 1 year experience that you're repeating 50 times, or a coach of 5 years experience who has learnt for 5 years. Deep.
Deep.
I wish I remember where I read it from.
Probably Twitter.
Probably.
What's that one Twitter account where it's like
constant like basketball coaching?
I
love that one.
The coach's clipboard or
This
something.
is defense, it's all defense, which is true.
Well, let's face it, Twitter is the source of all wisdom now.
Of course. We should have launched the page on Twitter. I just didn't know how to make it private.
And I think the other good flow-on effect that I'm hoping to see is that once people start connecting in your group, they might figure out they're in similar areas or similar levels.
Same country,
in real
even.
life. Because how good is meeting your internet friends in real life? The best. And then you're going to have those local strength in numbers, and then they can go and get their friends, and that's you're going to start building all these little microcosms, whatever that word is, little communities that have that kind of flow-on effect.
So 100%. Yeah, because I remember rocking up to the Basketball Africa League in Senegal, and I saw this other woman on the bench, and I'm like, who is she?
A little territorial, maybe.
I was like, I'm the only one allowed to be here. And she ended up being assistant coach for the Dakar University Club, and she's actually Coach Khady Diop is one of our mentor coaches or leadership coaches representing Senegal and Africa. And so, now we've built a great relationship, and Vik and I are about to head over to France and Germany for some basketball. And so I'll see Lauriane, who coaches in France. And these are women I've never met before, but I've, admired, seen their work or heard about them. And I'm going to go and watch her practice. And she's got a great coaching career. I'm going to learn a lot from her. So it also means that, for example, coach might be going to America or might be going over to Africa or Europe or Asia, and she might be able to be like, hey, I'm going to drop in on so-and-so and watch her run practice. These are things that I think would be amazing.
And I even saw that we just had the NBL 1 East Conference Finals just this weekend, and I saw that in the flesh. Renee Garlop was coaching the North Bears in the semi-final against Aubrey Wodonga, and Fleur McIntyre was behind her, turned up to watch Renee's game.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to build.
Personally, I think it is one of the most exciting initiatives I've heard about in basketball for a long time. It's different. It's got so many positives. And the other thing that I'm really seeing is it's a way to address – there's no better way of putting it, but a lot of female coaches are delegitimized by male coaches. This is going to address it.
Yeah, definitely.
Gives you that support framework
I
as well.
will chime in and say as well, though, the times where I have felt invalidated as a female coach is actually more by other women.
Yep.
And it will be other, I would be coaching junior female teams, and I'll have a female manager, and it will be the mothers of the opposition who would actually make me feel more invalidated than any male coach I would coach against or sometimes with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wonder.
This is brutal. This is why I don't coach juniors.
Oh, yeah. I even had an elimination final last time I coached, I haven't coached reps properly in a while. Last time I had a full season under 18 girls, Div 1, elimination final in Maitland, and we had mothers from the other team sitting at the end of my bench watching me, what I was doing, what I was saying to the referees. But sucked in, we won and knocked them out. But, and I'm not too sure if I weigh those experiences between males and females a little bit differently, because I expect females, because that's how I am, and I know that people can't be the same as me, but I expect, or at least hope, that females are going to support other females and have a little bit more kindness and compassion and kind of like celebration when we see this kind of stuff. So maybe when I feel invalidated in those instances by mums, then it hurts a little bit more maybe.
For sure. I think the biggest thing is because there's not enough room for us, or we think there's not enough room for us, we've created a competition. And that's probably men doing that to us more than anything. And so one of the really big things on the network, and part of the rules of the group, were around kindness and being supportive. Basically, we're creating a new table. And so that table means there's a seat for all of us. And therefore, there's no competition. There's no need to bring other women down. We're here to support each other and uplift each other. And you see, I get people asking me, why are you always promoting these other coaches? And I'm like, because I think what they're doing is amazing. And so I don't coach in France. I don't coach, the Virgin Islands national team. So of course I'm going to sit there and promote other women. And I think we won't feel the criticism by our male counterparts, who are a few. Not all male coaches are like that. That invalidation won't matter to us because we've got our own community where we feel validated, and that's all the validation we need.
You've got a home to come to.
Exactly. Like, oh, this person was an arsehole towards us. That's a reflection of him. That's not on us. And it's just like those mothers for you, Jacinta. It has nothing to do with you. And I think it's about actually changing that narrative early, because we don't want the younger female coaches coming up to feel that hostility. I actually felt when I was in my 20s and early 30s, acting like I'm 40 years old, that I didn't get support from older women. They didn't reach down and help pull me up. And I think our age group, it's our role to do that and to change that narrative. We rise by lifting others. And that's what we should be doing with this network.
Amen to that.
And I think in terms of the parents, they are a completely different beast. Parents in competitive situations can be incredibly ugly in behaviour. We've all seen it somewhere along the way. Unfortunately, they're just seeing it as a way to, yes, they had a go at you. In their head, we're doing something to help our team win. And they're not realising what they're really doing.
But it was illegal as well. You're not supposed to be sitting at the end of my bench. No one sits on the bench unless you're registered. It's my bench.
Yeah.
Like that's
it's mine, okay?
The most malicious tactic of helping your team that there is intimidating, sitting at the end of a bench illegally and intimidating a young female. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is no way it's justifiable.
True.
The only thing you can put it down to is it's parents who, and it is a generalisation, they're living out their own failed dreams through their kids.
True.
So you've mentioned a few of the other coaches involved. Let's talk about them for a little bit. Let's start off with the group. You've got Spain, Senegal, Cape Verde, Portugal, which most people have probably never heard of Cape Verde, but right. France. How did you connect with all these people?
Well, two of them I had connected during the Basketball Africa League. So that was Mery Andrade, who coached with Petro Delawana, who beat us in the playoffs. But she was an assistant coach, but she's part of the Pelicans G League team, assistant coach with them. And then I met, obviously, Coach Khady, who was coaching with Dakar University Club. And so when Vik and I were kind of thinking about this, it was, how do we represent, the different continents in the best possible way? Who are the trailblazing women in each of these continents? And it was basically just speaking to some commentators, FIBA commentators, because, as Jacinta can tell us, you end up commentating on such a wide variety of games across the FIBA competitions. And so it was picking out, Gaelle, our coach from Belgium, for example, was the first woman to interim head coach during the Basketball Champions League this year. And then we have, Brittni, who is the first female assistant coach to win a championship with the Toronto Raptors. Fleur obviously did amazing with the Sydney Kings this year. So the theme was finding out, and it was basically me just introducing myself and being like, hey, I've heard you've been amazing in your position, and I'm thinking about doing this with my sister Vik. Would you be interested in being part of the leadership group? And let's just say it wasn't exactly a hard sell. All these women, signed on really quickly and said this is something they would love to be part of, and they're all pushing out the initiatives within their countries.
Okay.
I probably left off some coaches. Oh, Anna. Okay. Yeah. Actually, Anna from Spain, I should mention, she was the first woman to coach in the ACB, which is the Spanish men's Division 1 elite. And that's the best league in Europe. And then she went across and head coached in Colombia, first woman to do that. So, we've all shattered glass ceilings somewhere, and we've all faced challenges. We've all been told no, and we've all got some really unique stories that I think will resonate with a lot of the other coaches within the network. Please tell me I haven't forgotten anybody.
No, I just have a look how you
I'll put the list. I'm like, you've covered everyone.
Lauriane, who was also, she coached in Pro A as an assistant coach. Now she's at Mulhouse in NM1. She's head coaching there. She actually, her team, and Vik, is this correct? Because Vik follows the French league. She came runners-up.
They did a great job, actually. Yeah, so she was pregnant. She gave birth during the last season, and they ended up, runners-up. So they just missed out on being promoted into Pro B. So it was great to watch her coach and her passion, and give the guys a bit of a run for their money, for sure.
And to be honest, hearing some of their stories, I actually think it's probably harder being a female coach in Europe than it is in Africa.
I think, you have pros and cons everywhere.
That's a whole other podcast, though.
So, Vik, are you more across the Euro leagues compared to Liz?
I'll be honest, outside of the French league, not really. So,
Very niche, just the French
I know, and it's so random, I know, but French.
But there's a lot of Africans who play in France, and so, like when we go to France, we're basically just like following. I'll see some former players that I've coached, and Vik's friends with a couple of players there as well, so we'll be able to drop in, and hoping to see Lauriane in Strasbourg, near where she coaches, and then Gaelle in Belgium.
But if we're talking about NBA, there's only one team to follow. So I'm pretty sure you guys know who I'm talking about, right?
No. You've put it out there.
He's not a team. Actually, he is the team, and he's the only reason I follow the team. We're talking about Jimmy Butler, of course, from the Miami Heat. So
let's not talk about Jimmy. Let's stay on task.
Love Jimmy.
Okay.
So.
I love it. I knew she was going to be able to find some way to put that.
The new podcast After Dark Thirst Trap edition.
Yes, sign me up.
One of our friends of the podcast, Lyndon Moore, who was covering the inaugural New Zealand League, I know exactly who she would enter because she and I tag each other in posts all the time.
Oh my God, who is it?
I'm not telling you on air. I will tell you off air. Oh. It's too close to call for me to be broadcasting that out. I already broadcast enough stupid facts about myself on the internet. Something that
look, if it's not Kawhi Leonard, I don't need to hear about it. So,
I'm sorry, where was Kawhi last season?
I'm sorry, how many championships does Jimmy have?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But sorry, Paul. Back on track.
No. This is good. Actually, you've made a great segue into the next thing I want to talk about. And it's really unfortunate because it's going to sound really self-serving coming from me. But male advocates for how many are there and how do you get them involved? I mean, look, Lena touched on it. It is important. And I also see it and I think to myself, these amazing athletes, coaches, administrators who need to be supported. I don't need to hold the flag, but these individuals, and they're all really talented, need to be supported. And I tell people, actually, this evening I was coming from a meeting and I was talking to a recently retired senator and I was talking to him about women's basketball and he actually knew Rahani Cox. We were able to discuss it and he was like, I'm really interested in the sport. So it's there. How do we get people who have this desire, this interest in supporting women across basketball to assist you with this program?
Okay. Well, I think Vik and I actually have both been really lucky, both in basketball and in corporate careers, to have great male mentors and men who have supported us along the way. Vik and I actually started coaching basketball because we were tapped on the shoulder by a male coach. And he recognized the leadership skills that we had and he took us under his wing. So shout out to Daniel Fisher from Northern Suburbs. And so in terms of this initiative, it's actually been really interesting to see. We've actually had some legitimate male coaches try to join the network, and Paul too, by the way. But that's also a really positive sign. And I wish I could decline and say, I'm really sorry, this is currently just for women. Later on, we'd love to have you, as Vik touched on. But in terms of what they can do, they can find the page and share the link with the female coaches that they know and encourage them to join the network. They can also encourage them to be active participants in the network by saying, what coaches did you connect with? What's the topic for this month's topic in the network? What have you learnt? And to constantly engage with them about the network. It's also about men thinking about when they hire a coach, be that an assistant or an intern or a volunteer, it's maybe reaching out to the network and saying, hey, this is a job opportunity. Could you post this on your network? Because we're looking to promote females. Or part of their criteria might be, are you part of this network? We think, from a club perspective, say I'm Northern Suburbs Basketball Association. Well, I want all our females to be part of this network and promoting it like that. Vik, is there any other ways you think?
I'm probably taking it more from my a corporate experience as well. Is do you set targets? Do you put things into KPIs and have specific training and accountability around pathways and succession planning of women, not just as coaches, but behind in the back office, in the executive teams of the clubs of Basketball Australia. So, I'm tackling maybe the corporate body behind the game. So, for example, what kind of mentorship program is happening in Basketball Australia? What are the male coaches, at the clubs, what are they doing? Because quite often, you can spot talented leaders quite at an early age. Do you make it a KPI to say, when you are interviewing for a head coach of the under 18 men's team, you have to have 1-for-1. So one male and one female candidate.
You know, if you can't find a female candidate, okay, well, you got to wait till you can. So, and that's a great way to come to the network and go, hey, Fleur or Liz, you know, where we're looking for someone who's got 10 years experience, who's coached at the state level at minimum, you know, could you recommend 2 or 3 women that we could interview? So I think there has to be a level of transparency, accountability. And I'm not saying, you know, we have to have 50-50 on the board and that's mandatory, but we have to be working towards it. We've got to be sharing those numbers with the public, with the shareholders. What are you doing? What is your plan, your succession planning? What is happening in the DE&I space? So diversity, equality, inclusion. And you know, obviously we don't, you know, it's not just gender, it's age, it's race, it's, you know, different backgrounds and stuff.
Ultimately, we're hoping that a network like this forces federations, local associations to really challenge the decision makers who are predominantly male to start thinking about those kind of strategies that Vik just spoke about.
And it's also not attacking men. They are, and Paul, you stated it really well. It's allies. It's, you know, having both sides at the table, ultimately. So we need men to come on this journey with us. It's not about exclusion at the moment. It's about creating that safe environment. And phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, who knows where we'll end up in the next, you know, year, 2, 3 years.
And we might be able to extract enough data to be able to build almost an ally program for male coaches. And in terms of educating them on how to better be allies and be supporters of because I think there's actually a lot of good-hearted male coaches out there. They actually just don't know how to be supportive and how to
plug in.
And plug in. This.
Yeah.
And so we might be able to find some great research within the network to be like, oh, okay, this was an amazing experience for this female coach who was mentored by this man. And maybe we can write a blueprint that we can give to federations. And I mean, look, that's like long-term down the line, but, you know, baby steps to start with.
There's so much potential, though.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking, like, as Vik and I had just into her Paul, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I can see this becoming a really huge initiative.
Oh, don't tell me that. I'm already stressed.
Nah, look, I can, because I think it's filling a gap. It's providing a support network. It's providing learning. From my point of view, I have one question. Have you ever thought of taking these skills that are going to be pulled together and actually directing it to the corporate world?
That is something that I've actually been thinking about in terms of having probably more a side gig as a consultant. I think this is, and Vik could easily tap into this, and another friend of mine that I'm working on this kind of project with, Coach Nima, who's a coach from Melbourne. We've been discussing how we can bring what we've learned, especially in Africa, where diversity, culture, age, you know, race, etc., is all an issue. And these are things that are also problems in basically any corporations. And also that winning mentality and all the skills that you learn in sport about mental toughness,
resilience.
Resilience, etc. These are things that you could definitely walk into a corporate environment and preach. And so it's all about a matter of time. Like, you know, I want to be back in Africa towards the end of this year coaching the BAL qualifiers. And so I think the priority for me was always going to be this network first and foremost. This is definitely a passion project, and I wouldn't have been able to set it up without Vik. And, you know, we're volunteering all these hours and asking the 7 other leadership coaches to do the same. And it's something that we're really passionate about, and we want to focus and make it the best it can be before moving on to a project like you mentioned, Paul. But that's definitely something I'd like to do in the future.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. When you're ready to launch that, let me know. I've got plenty of places I can think of that would really benefit.
You can really tell in a lot of workplace settings who's played sport growing up and who hasn't.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, guys, so here's the big thing which is coming up for us, the FIBA Women's World Cup. Any favourite games and any predictions?
Well, I think we'll definitely be out there supporting Mali for sure, representing Africa. So we'll try to get to as many games as we can for them. Obviously, it's wonderful to see Lauriane Jackson back wearing the green and gold. I think just her leadership experience and will be fundamental for the team. So, but always fun to see the Americans. I mean, it's very rare for us to get to see that quality of basketball here on our shores, kind of like when we had Team USA out here prior to the 2019 World Champs in China. So, I think I'll be pretty excited to try and see at least the Americans play. I know Belgium was quite strong during the Olympics. They had a really nice, crisp offense. Really liked the way that they played.
Yeah, the Japanese as well. I'm looking forward to seeing them play. To be honest, Vik and I actually haven't watched a lot of women's basketball over the last couple of years just because we've been so immersed on the men's side. So the opportunity to have the games here and being able to go has just basically reawakened our love for women's basketball. Basically feel like I don't even need to watch the games because you tell me everything I need to know. And so, for us, it's coming back to the women's game and being able to just basically go up the road and watch the best women's basketball players on the planet play. And also the opportunity to support an African team in Mali and hope to see them get some wins at the tournament as well.
Okay, so we need to sign you up for the pickup game as well.
And look,
we're very good spectators.
That's right. Come and spectate. It's really just a good way to get all of our. I love using this term because it's a little bit dorky, but it's true. But all of our internet friends together, meet face to face, bit of networking, have a chat, come and spectate, come and play on the rack if you want to. But we'll definitely be organising something.
Yeah, we'll keep us posted. If Vik and I are in country, we will be there.
Cool.
For sure.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. It's always great talking to you, Liz. I'm pretty sure you are our first three-peat guest.
I feel very honoured.
MJ,
honestly.
Here.
I've had the pleasure, inverted commas, of doing a lot of podcasts, and I've got to say this is easily my favorite. And even when my friends listen to it, they're like, "Oh, we can tell how much you love being on the show with Jacinta and Paul." And I'm like, "Oh, I would be a guest every time, honestly." But you probably
sometimes I'm like, "How long are you guys chatting for? Are you guys still talking?" You're like, what is happening?
They've done a lot of editing, so normally if it's 2 hours, that's the standard.
Yeah, are you still on the phone? What's happening?
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the initiative develops. Love to check in again, see how it's grown. And who knows, maybe we can try and do a panel session with some of the other coaches.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
So we can really get some ideas kicking back and forth.
Love it.
Again, thanks so much. It's been great, Liz, having you here again, and Vik, meeting you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Shooting the Breeze can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast with all your friends.